And for human beings, there's really only one place where we can touch the Godhead and say, hey, we've sort of apprehended it. And that's when our little children are running around when we've brought new life. I think the core of the whole mystery is that it's a fertility religion.
Hello and welcome to HolisticCircle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy and magic. And I'm happy to have here with me today, LadyE and Josh. Hello and welcome, both of you.
Hi. Thank you for having us again.
Yes, it is our second round, and the people who have been hearing it the last couple of days, part of my Christmas series, that I have the great pleasure of inviting some of the most interesting and engaging and popular, by the way, guests of the year back. And so thank you for coming here to a second round. And this time you brought your lovely wife. So this is going to be a very interesting and engaging conversation. And for my audience, very, very quickly, this is my last recording of the year 2025, although it might be published in the first days of January. But nevertheless, I'd say thank you so much for spending 1 year with me, listening to more than 100 episodes. It's been quite a ride, and this is all for your own pleasure. So with that, I jump right in, and we're again going to talk about Gardnerian Wicca. So it's about witchcraft, magic, and people who believe in it and practice it. So it's from the inside. I will try to avoid the most obvious jokes, but I can't promise entirely. My first question.
I can start with that one. He had me on at the end of the year because I look like Sam. There we go. Everything after that goes up.
We've got one already. And counting. We'd love to know because, by the way, you are the A+ guest of the year. You're the first and only guest to actually send me questions. I asked a lot of guests, can you please send me some questions to sound a bit smarter? No one did except you two. So I'm so nervous because I have some questions here on the screen that I never had before. I feel like under pressure.
Not all of the questions were from us.
All right. But it's a good question. I love that. I would never came up with it. So the first one is, can you tell us, it's very interesting to me, what is a mystery religion? What I'm supposed to understand from that?
The mystery religion it goes back to antiquity, where religions were supposed to inspire questions about the universe and philosophical questions and encourage you to search in yourself and encourage you to search in the world around you and encourage the individual to search for the god and the goddess, or gods and goddesses, right? Whatever fit them. But importantly, we're different from Christianity or, any of the other religions because we don't tell you the answers. If you as a seeker were to ask us questions about something, we might answer, it's a mystery. Yeah. You're supposed to figure that out for yourself.
It's a journey. It's a spiritual journey that you uncover the answers to the mysteries on your way.
Mm-hmm. There's no answers. There's no Wicca Bible. I know that the Farrars, have the witch's Bible, but there's no Wicca Bible out there. There's no, hey, you'll find all the answers in this book. You're supposed to be in touch with those spiritual forces enough that you can say, hey, I understand the philosophy here. I understand what I'm supposed to be getting out of this and what I'm supposed to be searching for. And there's no, your elders in Wicca, Gardnerian Wicca, might have answers for you, but that's part of it. Is we want people to be engaged and active in this faith, and we want them to be asking those questions and seeking those answers for themselves.
So I guess we can agree what they're saying. So I get it's gonna be crazy. So I guess it's more about the search is more valuable than the answer. Is that maybe stretching it too far? Or is this something that you would feel comfortable with, or how would you feel about the statement?
I can't tell you, it's a mystery. No. He's already Gardnerian. All right. It is the search. It's the journey is more important than the destination. And I think that with the people who are doing it right, like the people who have been Gardnerian for years upon years upon years, and I'm thinking about like Frederick Lamont, who wrote 50 Years of Wicca, or somebody like Patricia Crowther, who was in it for quite a while. Those people might have even gotten to the point where they were critical of their elders and they were critical of the answers. But that tells me that they're in the right place because they're asking those questions and they're arriving at those answers and they're having those thoughts as they walk around the natural world. One of the things that I do a lot when I'm chewing on a problem, whether it's at work or whether it's an ethical or moral problem or thinking about how the world works, is I like to go outside and experience nature and look around and do that. And it's something that Fred did. And it's something that even within my line of work, the fellow who invented the cray, he used to dig holes in his backyard and he would say that the elves would give him answers when there was a difficult problem. Now, I don't think he had elves in his backyard, but it's a wonderful pagan expression to be like, oh, the spirits of the earth in this cave that I've made in my backyard of Philadelphia or wherever he lived. Those gave me the answers. And I think there's something there to it, right? If you go out in nature and you let nature speak to you, you'll arrive at those answers. Or maybe more questions. I don't know. What's that?
Can I bounce back? I have a feeling from the conversation I had with you and others that if you take this kind of a thing that you do with a certain humor, certain human approach, and don't take it as written scripture, it's just something that you have to experience, that you have to feel, there's like an emotional bond, that there's a lot to gain out of it. But when you're a person like a German who reads every line and takes it for real as written as is, that this is a borderline dangerous thing to do. So it's a little bit something I've learned this year. Do you think I'm on the track on something here?
If you had asked me that as a student, I'd ask you, like, are you okay being wrong? Have you thought of a time where maybe you said, oh man, I really went down the wrong path?
Every single day I'm married.
Maybe more than picking the right dinner or something like that. But that's an important thing, is to also cultivate that introspection and be able to admit that you're wrong and maybe you did the wrong thing. And I think that the gods are benevolent and they love us and they want us to experience good things. But I think that part of that is also being humble enough to say, hey, maybe I did the wrong thing. And we've been humbled by that before, where we've done magic and gotten the wrong outcome or no outcome at all. And then you have to go back and you have to say, why didn't it work? What did I screw up? Because it's ultimately on you as the practitioner to cultivate that introspection and figure out when you're doing the right thing, but figure out when you're doing the wrong thing too.
Wonderful. This time we have two guests, so I'm so happy. You guys will decide who answers what. I will not going to be the jury here. That's way too dangerous territory. But the main subject we agreed on, and I'm really looking forward, because you gave me a reading assignment that our audience don't know. After our last podcast, Josh gave me a reading list to basically learn a little bit more about the subject I'm podcasting about. And I actually read this book during summer. And so I know a tiny little bit more about magic and Wicca. And one thing that the book really strongly reflected back to me was the idea of female and male energy within the circle, within witchcraft, that there is something going on much deeper. I just came to the point where I understood there's something really interesting going on. And I hope today you both can a little bit enlighten me. What is the specifics of male and female energy within the circle, and why is it so, I understand, important for witchcraft to be aware of these energies? So please.
So basically, male energy is more like change, and female energy is more nurturing. It's life-giving. As in nature, you have to have both. They are balancing. You cannot have one without the other. You need both to balance in nature. And so Gardnerian is very much the same, where they like that co-energy. They like that balance, that male and female, because it has the energy flow better when you have both. I don't know how else to describe that.
I think that we're all human beings, right? And we all know how human beings reproduce. And that's really the core of magic, and something that I think everybody should experience or meditate strongly upon is, how do we bring things into the world? And for human beings, there's really only one place where we can touch the Godhead and say, hey, we've sort of apprehended it. And that's when our little children are running around when we've brought new life. I think the core of the whole mystery is that it's a fertility religion. It really is. Gardner mentions it, I don't know, a couple hundred times at least. I think Patricia Crowther mentions it. Who else? Doreen Valiente, she mentions it as a fertility religion. She puts it there. And all of the mysteries that we talk about within Gardnerian Wicca really hinge on that fertility religion context, right? That's the core subject matter there. And that's where we share the act of creation with the gods.
To understand, give us a couple more sentences. Fertility religion, you said, how we understand, we maybe understand, we maybe not, but as a practitioner, as a magician, as someone that goes to the woods and wants to celebrate this, what are here the qualities, or what is here the specific purpose of each one? Or I understand fertility religion, but why is this basically still is such a crucial element of magic? Is there a connection that I don't understand?
It's the generative force. It's you want to bring something into this world, just as back in the day, people were trying to generate their crops into being. They wanted food, they wanted life, because back then, long time ago, if you didn't have crops or animals or any type of food or water, you didn't survive. So there is, in the root of it, it's very much all about survival and regenerative force. Do you want to expand on that?
I think that the physical world plays a huge part in the mysteries, right? That's why it's important to get out in the nature, and that's why it's important to actually perform magical acts, and that's why it's important to celebrate the seasons and the change and all the rest of it. The ancestors were not ignoring the physical world. The physical world, in fact, is the root of their spirituality. There is this basic survival mode that they started out with. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You need food, shelter, water, air, that kind of a thing. And then after they got comfortable and they could produce those things reliably, then they started thinking about what's happening on the spiritual world. But that didn't occur without struggle and scarcity, right? These folks needed food. They needed crops. They needed to store their food over winter. And they needed animal husbandry. And all of those things come together. And then they start thinking about, okay, why? Right. And now we start thinking about the rational thought process of what gets my crops to grow, what gets my animals to reproduce, what gets water from the well, what prevents a drought, or protects my storms from hail and lightning. And that's what elevates their thinking. But at the end of the day, they're really trying to solve these immediate problems. We live in a really comfortable society and civilization at this point. We don't have to worry about getting struck by lightning. Well, you can still get struck by lightning, but we don't have to worry about it ruining our crops, and then we have to worry about our food next year. I think we've gotten to a point where
it's more spiritual now.
Yeah, now we've gotten to an abstract layer. But that's even why it's important these days to grow a garden and get your hands dirty and, go volunteer at the shelter and stuff like that, just to remind yourself how it all works.
Yeah, it's putting your feet in the grass or in the dirt, walking, getting your hands dirty, growing things. It's that connection to nature.
Yeah.
That bond, that feeling that you get by doing so. Like if you just sit outside and you're not immersing yourself in nature by physically touching it, you're not creating that bond, that immersion, that experience.
Yeah. All the mysteries come from the physical world. They start on the physical world. They really do.
And a little bit answers the next question I would have asked you. I would have asked you basically why you still are, a Wicca in that sense, when we have everything in a supermarket and all of this seems to be has passed on. That would have been my next question. Why would one still be a Gardnerian Wicca when, we have food delivery? Why do you still celebrate this stuff? I understand why the caveman was celebrating this fertility and all of it. That would I understand, but why do you basically still celebrate? Although you kind of answered it, but I would still stick to my question anyway.
For me, it's an ancestral connection. Knowing that way back when ancestors did these types of things, that is my connection. By doing the things as they would similarly have done, that is me working my bond with my ancestors, understanding what they did, and feeling that connection, that bond. It's neat. It's really neat discovering it, learning what they would probably have learned. It's very interesting, and it's very different from how we do things in the modern world.
There's a Tool song where he talks about, I don't know what you want to call it, the ancestral record or something, ancestral memory. And he talks about being the hunter and the fisherman, and it feels like he's been here before. And I think that there's some deep resonance in those actions when you're doing those things that connects you to that long line that you've inherited from your ancestors. We had deer season here in the United States, and my oldest just got his first deer. And I was really proud of him. But there's people who would look at that and they'd say, that's unnecessarily cruel to go out there and hunt an animal. And I think that it's important to be deliberate in those actions. It is a little bit sad to kill an animal, but we've been doing it for the last million years. And that's part of our heritage. And if you're going to commit to that sort of action and you're going to do it, you deserve to think about how it makes you feel and what that experience is and where does food come from, and have those sorts of thoughts about how to do it well and how to do it to minimize cruelty and how to be thankful. Yeah. We always tell them, like, be thankful when you eat this meal because something gave its life for this.
And thank the spirit of the deer.
Yeah, that chain goes back to antiquity. There's people who painted cave paintings of deer, and they didn't do it because it was the first memes. They did it because it was important to them, and it was a spiritual experience.
And you're feeding your family. You are making sure that you have meat and food for your family through winter. We still do that by doing the hunting, and it's part of hunter-gathering. It's, like you said, it's that connection to ancestral activities.
I just had this image of being like, I'm a gatherer and I'm going to the produce section at the supermarket and gathering all the blueberries. But
as a 30-year vegetarian, the only question I would have had, did you eat the deer? Then
yeah.
I think it's wonderful and nothing is wrong with that. And then it's very more honest and more spiritual and real than going to the supermarket and buying some processed meat who comes God knows where. So I have respect for everyone who has the stamina and courage in this modern world to go out and find its own food. That definitely is an entirely different level.
Well, thank you.
But now this things is getting a bit blurry between the lines, because I think we all have a certain idea what a witch or magician is supposed to be. I've been listening a lot to you, and I've got a very wonderful idea. It's very soft and lovely. You're going to nature, and I'm a complete nature person. I'm an Austrian, and we all are crazy about nature. It's basically, we all Gardnerian Wicca. We don't know it. Nature is just so embedded with my country and the culture of my country. So this is so wonderful. So give me a couple of ideas. Why would a seeker, and that's, you talk about your personal motivation, why you ancestral idea and why you were searching through the path of Gardnerian Wicca, your own enlightenment or your own truths. Which are the people that come to you? Is it nature lovers? Is it basically Austrians living in America? Is this basically the target group? Or I would join a magic circle because I want to learn magic. So where does this all find its place?
Basically, we get all different types of seekers. Some who have gone through past emotional trauma, some that are seeking that connection to nature, some that have read all the books, but they're ready for the practical application of magic, because you can read all the books you want, but until you physically go and do the magic and get your hands dirty, and physically do it, it's not going to mean as much to you. And you can be book smart all you want, but until you've tried it and done it through trial and error, until you've gotten it right, that's more well-rounded, I guess, more You want that immersive experience because you may have theories about how magic works, but until you've done that trial and error and found out how it works, you'll never know. You have to try.
We actually just look for dirty hippies.
No,
That's the requirement. No. I
Well,
think that
then you found one.
yeah, there you go. We look for people who there are certainly all of those things, but I think that all they do is quantify somebody as wanting to be Wiccan or a witch or involved in magic in some way, shape, or form. And those are all good. But when you say, hey, what makes them Gardnerian, that's where we look for those things, such as the fertility religion or the touchstones of they've read Gerald Gardner and they like what he has to say.
Or people that want more structure. It's usually people who are done with like eclectic or some other magical system where they want something that they're going to know the bare bones of it, where it's not going to be, let's do this one way, one day and not another. And sometimes it's all over the place. Whereas with structure, you know what it's basically going to be. There are some changes here and there, but you'll know basically how it's going to run.
Yeah, I know we talked a lot about, hey, this is the experience, and it was very freeform and open. But when you talk about the responsibilities of tradition, I think that's the sort of fine line between somebody who's interested generally in witchcraft and somebody who wants to be Gardnerian. If they think that they want to be Gardnerian and they're looking for those mysteries and they're looking to honor them and faithfully transmit them, essentially as the priest class, that's a very important distinction between somebody who's interested in being Gardnerian and somebody who's interested in being a witch. That would be the differentiator.
Yeah. Gardnerian, it's more like basically the way things are taught. It's a preparing for the priestly caste of, you think of like the temples of Egypt and Greece and Rome and how their priests and priestesses were taught. And it's very similar in that way where it's taught a certain way. And that's why it's a mystery religion, is because they wanted you to think. They wanted you to have that spiritual growth and come to that aha moment when you finally do get it. And then everything makes more sense. But you have to work for it. You have to get yourself there.
Is that what I experience, like a formal structure, like somebody is being, as you said, a priest? You called her a couple of times, your high priestess. So is there like a hierarchical structure that like you're a seeker and then you come in, and is there some kind of steps that you go through as a formal process, or is it like an individual? Do you declare yourself now, I'm a priest, or is there something that goes within your group?
That's something more on the other side of things.
She's saying she doesn't want to give you specifics because it's an initiation. It's an initiated question.
Yeah.
But I think what I will generally say is there's definitely that like introductory stage of, do you believe in magic? And then can you do magic? And then why do you think magic works? And then can you help others understand? Right. And so there's definitely a hierarchy within it. It is a degreed program. Yeah. But I don't think anybody's necessarily pulling rank unless there's some severe conflict.
And you can't ever just give yourself a title. That doesn't happen.
You're looking for spiritual growth. There's some people who are definitely going to be, first degree forever if there's no spiritual growth there. But maybe that's where they belong, right? Maybe somebody just needs some problem solved or something mediated or some sort of remedy from you, and it required them to join a coven, but they don't want to progress beyond that. And that's the personal choice of the seeker. If
Everyone has a different journey.
Right. If you just want to be an aircraft mechanic, but you never want to be a pilot, like, cool. Maybe you want to be a pilot and then you decide you want to design airplanes. That's another level too.
See, so again, back to a little bit better understand. When one would imagine that if one joins something like this with a motivation, the seekers must have a motivation. And if I say I want to do magic, I think that you would say that it should be an internal process of spiritual growth and then discovering the mystery. Most likely that would be your answer. And maybe I just want to make a love potion. So help me out here because I could need it, or at least a no fighting potion. Is this something that's available?
And it also depends too, like you said, like if someone is just there to make a love potion, they're not spiritually growing, they're not doing something for the better of all. There has to also be some aspect of you want to attain this level of doing things for others, not just yourself. You have to be able to work with others and work well and not cause problems.
If you just wanted to make a love potion, we bore our seekers to death with philosophy, but I think that it's important to understand why you want to make the love potion, and it's important to think about how that love potion would operate. How does it make you feel? How are you connected to the object of this love potion? Is what you're doing
against someone's will,
against somebody's will, or something else? Like you could make a love potion and share it with your wife, and that would be a positive outcome. You could make a love potion and slip it into somebody's drink, and that would be illegal. We should think about why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah.
But then you recommend book Magical Herbs. And if I read Magical Herbs, well, in my mind, love potion is the first thing that comes up. So is this space, asking very honestly, would that be part of a training to learn to make potions?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We do that all the time. No, I'm not going to say go eschew modern science and modern medicine, right? Like if somebody comes and says, I want to make a love potion, I'm going to be like, okay, have you tried Viagra? But the thing is it's going to help you out. It's going to augment your experience. It's ministering to that physical world, and then the spiritual world is going to help them with the love in their life, if that's the road they want to go down. Witches love their plants. I'm just looking at the bookshelf. I would say that like a third of our books are about plants. So it's like plants, setting things on fire, candles, and then philosophy is what's on the bookshelf.
Maker. I've a whole candle brand. So I produce hundreds and hundreds of candles every year. So putting things on fire, I'm welcome there.
There you go. You're already a third Wiccan.
For me,
good start.
For me, I always
Austrian, so maybe it's like up already.
For me, like I was called to Wicca when I was 11 years old. And for me, it was that pull towards nature. And it was because I wanted to understand how the universe worked. I wanted to understand what was possible, what was not, what was the hierarchy, how everything fit together like a puzzle. I wanted to understand everything that I possibly could. And you go from different path to different path to different path until you feel one that fits right, one that you feel like you're actually growing in, one that actually, gets you thinking, because if it doesn't challenge you and make you think, then why are you there? It's better to have something that can challenge you and get you there.
Starting to get an interesting element here, that there's an inner process, as you said, there's like an inner growth, an inner calling, and like to find a place like home where that growth can happen. And there's an outward plan, like I want my potion to control people, or to get riches, or to do magic, to be more powerful, to put my energy up. That's a very popular thing right now. Or to connect with my animal's birth spirit is also a popular thing right now. So there's a lot of things going on in this spiritual world where people want to live longer, be more powerful, control others, make more money. And I can't take it anymore. The Instagram videos with like, put your spirit up and the money will rain. And I'm like, dear Lord, who cares? Do you hear that? Do you feel that? Are you come across those kind of conflicts?
Sometimes you see that kind of stuff, but it should be more about like, how can you help others? How can you worship the gods? It's very much about worshiping the gods and the goddesses. And like the priests and priestesses of old, you are serving them by worshiping them, by giving your offerings, giving things. And you're making that bond, that connection. And then you can ask for things. Yeah, but they want you to work too. You can't just say, hey, I want to sit on my butt all day, but hey, I want money. They're going to say, yeah, no. Lazy person doesn't get the money. But if you put the effort in and you do things and you physically do things, then they're going to pay attention, because it's all about you have to put the effort in.
Or you can just move to Europe. We have social welfare. You get money for sitting around. That's a shortcut. Sorry. I actually have an extremely serious question here next that been haunting me the whole year in a way. I think I've lost it right now. My joke killed my question. No, honestly, I lost the question, but I have a long list of yours.
You can always call us back.
I got it back. I got it. Dear Lord, this is the question of the year, so it came back to me.
Okay.
I've asked it several times already this year, and I would like to honestly ask it to both of you. This one question that finally I'll say. It's interesting to me because for you, the spirits are real. That's where we start. I mean, you're praying to them. You talk very lovely and kind about honoring those gods, having respect to those gods. I think in our private pre-meeting, you said you can't go drunk into the circle. It would be disrespectful to the gods and things like that. So I have a feeling that you're very loving and respectful and very intimate towards these spirits that you work with. That is my experience I have from you. So for you, they must be real, like as real as it gets.
Oh yeah.
It's
so curious in this modern secular world. You're walking through the streets and you see so many people like staring at their phone, cutting themselves off from this bigger world around and being maybe critical or cynical towards higher spirits. For me, this is becoming a very interesting conflict. This may be a bad word, but I'll use it anyway in lack of better English.
There's a lot of people who get fed up with the stress and the drama and the unkindness of the modern world. And maybe it's because of all the demands and pressures. And they go and they take that walk out in the woods, or they seek that nature religion because for them, they need a way to tune all that out and just relax, de-stress. And so a lot of people finally, they find that as an alternative, not just to de-stress and calm themselves, but they see it as, okay, there's the mundane world. That is the world that they live in, they go to work in, that's the mundane world. And then they see that there is an alternative, that there is this whole other world, and they just need to relax. And, I've heard the term nature bathing, where people just go for that walk in the woods and they just reconnect. But where was I going with this?
It's contagious.
Yeah. But yeah, like there's that.
But you get my point. I'm getting frustrated because I had this wonderful podcast 2 days ago, and there was a lovely lady, and I have tremendous respect for her. She's insane, so that's why I invited her, because it was my 100th episode, and she was my dream guest for my 100th episode.
Okay.
So she was really, I was waiting a whole year to invite her, and she really came and so forth. So I have enormous respect. But with all this conversation, all her seeking and all the things she's done, she cannot step over science or the things that are real that you can touch and so forth. So with all that seeking, and maybe I've been there a couple of years ago, but now for all this conversation, that like talking to you and others that I greatly respect, and I know that for you this is all real, I come to the point where I say I have to believe, and that's a weird thing for a modern secular guy to say. There will be a point where I must choose to simply believe, and it's liberating and it's interesting and it's challenging, but I wonder how you see people like me and others who don't have the strength to believe in this greater world. How do you see your fellow man?
It's kind of like how everybody starts out, because everybody does the sanity check. Like, I don't know, if I believe it, or if I see it, then I'll believe it, kind of thing. But sometimes you do it enough times, you go, okay, I'm going to take that leap of faith, and you just trust that it's real, but you still ask for them to show you signs. That's absolutely possible, or not possible. What's the word? it's absolutely okay to do so. To say, hey, I just need to know that you're actually here in the room with me so that I'm not losing my mind. So I'm not talking to myself. And occasionally something will jump out at you, like they will actually throw an object at you. You're like, okay. But in the beginning, that was my aha moment. So it went from belief to being, okay, that is confirmed. So I would say that everyone who's from another religion or from a different path, that in the very beginning, you do a lot of that self-doubt. You have that whole, is it real? Is it not? And you ask those questions. And it's good to do sanity checks so that you're not just talking to yourself in a room. But eventually, you're going to start to feel them. You'll feel them enter the room. And so then it removes all doubt. They want to see that you try, that you are willing to relinquish yourself to this idea of faith and just trust in them. And then once you do, you will eventually start to feel everything enter the room. And you're like, oh, okay. And when it gets to the point where you can ask for them to make sure that they give you a sign that they're in the room. And they do. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries, but then they do.
I think that, and I'm going to take off my Gardnerian hat here and just give you a more general answer. I think that there is a desire in modernity for authenticity, because every time you open your cell phone, you're seeing somebody or something, and it's a one-way conversation. You're seeing the newest advertisement for Coca-Cola on Facebook. You're seeing some actress shaking her stuff on Facebook or whatever, and it's coming at you, but it's essentially pushed at you. This is not establishing a human connection or a spiritual connection. This is essentially advertising in various forms of subversion. But we're not, me and you, we're having this real conversation. That you're a real person and you're genuinely interested and that kind of a thing. And I think that people staring at their cell phones should probably have that moment of pause and say, what's being pushed upon me? What am I getting out of this experience? What is authentic about what I'm seeing on my little glass box?
Or it's information that is self-gratification. What do you call it? Not self-gratification. What's the word? I'm missing the word.
Self-fulfilling?
No, it's instantaneous. It's instantaneous information. You want to know something, you look it up on Google. It gives you that information, but there's no seeking. There's no, like you said, there's no establishing that relationship and talking back and forth with something. There is no work to it.
So I think to pivot that topic, like how could we turn that into a positive? Like how could we take, the stuff that we're seeing on social media and how could we make it awesome? I think that when we look at our children and we think about how we've approached ourselves, that kids see astronauts on television and that might inspire them to go work for NASA. And it's still television, or they're still looking at TikToks of astronauts, or they're still looking at whatever the latest YouTube reel is about space, but that has a good ending. That has them being inspired to go do something with their lives. And then I think to bring it back to magic, when you look at other figures in magic, not Gardnerian, but magic, John Dee, who was before Gardner, we did talk about witchcraft occasionally. He starts out from a position of faith. He says, hey, I don't necessarily believe in spirits. I don't perceive spirits. I don't know if magic works, but he's very religious. And so that's almost like the opposite direction of the cell phone, where he spends his entire time praying and essentially pushing out this content. If he had a TikTok channel, every TikTok channel would be him praying as a show. But he starts out praying, and then slowly through his interactions, he's become convinced that there's something else out there. And now we go from religion to faith. And eventually through his actions and his interactions with his scryers, the most famous being Edward Kelly, he comes around to this idea that spirits are real and we can ask them things and we can have conversations with them. And so it's not this overnight thing. I think everybody starts out with, oh no, magic is Harry Potter stuff. It's stupid BS. And then you get into, oh, magic is real and it's really complicated and hard to do. And then on the far side of it, it's, let's make magic fun. And that's my own spiritual path also. I started out being like, I don't know about this stuff. And then I was like, oh, it's really complicated. And then at the end of it, I'm like, go dance around a tree. But
Josh, I had like 3 days, a little bit less work than usual. And so I had time a little bit to imagine things. And I actually really spent 3 days, I don't know why, imagining that science in the next couple of years will prove that spirits exist, that they find ways, maybe through water crystals or whatever, to prove that these spirits are real scientifically without a shadow of a doubt. And that a society is emerging that basically will come to terms with the fact that spirits exist, that they're part of it, and people like you and others who already have known that and working with them will become, of course, the leading experts in, because the whole world then wants to know what's going on there. How would you spin forward a little dream of mine? State religion is Gardnerian, and we all,
Still got to choose,
where are we
man.
heading here?
I think that science may be not our friend here. I think that psychology is probably our friend. And it's the psychological model is that the spirits aren't real and blah, 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 blah. You'll hear that tossed around in magic circles. How we interact, how we're interacting right now is essentially governed by psychology and sociology, right? So in my mind, those are the places where we'll get this stuff from. I think science is a bit soulless. I think that it doesn't deal well with things like the size of the universe or things that don't have necessarily physical incarnation. I think that we think about the world the way we do because we're running around in these physical bodies. And so after death, we do end up in that galactic sized, end life experience where we don't really have a use for time because we don't have physical bodies anymore. And so we don't think about it or perceive it. And we have that universal now moment.
I think that it incorporates both.
I think
a bit of both, because you're doing that trial and error, you're making the contact, but then you have to have emotion as well. You have to be able to perceive and have emotion and be able to sense things through feeling, whether tactile or emotional.
Oh, I agree with you. I think there's two pieces of it outside of the physical body. You've got Odin's ravens, Hunan and Nunan, thoughts and memory. And one of them is the rational process and one of them is the emotive process. And he listens to both of them in the pagan myths. I think that's very important. I think that we're also at a place, putting on my technology hat, where we're getting to the age of intention rather than doing, where we place a higher emphasis on intention. And by that, you hear about ChatGPT doing things for you, or you hear about The Secret, where it's all about intention. I think that as we move as a species, as like human beings, into the future, we're going to end up in an age where we think less about how do we turn 5 lug nuts on my wheel to my intention is to change a tire. And then robots go off and do that. And then that changes on the physical world. And you think about what does that mean to me now that I've got something that does my intention, and you go into that mystery. It's a heady topic.
Obviously, I should not take 3 days off working because crazy things. But I wanted so much. I wanted to spin this in my head towards the end. I really wanted to so much see, like, let's say science could prove spirits. So mediums all of a sudden would not be hocus pocus anymore, because we would have a scientific test to say which medium is actually real and can talk to the dead and which one is a faker. And these real mediums, we would know that the messages are actually genuine. And I really was spinning and spinning forward. How would a society look like where we accept that 10% of the population are mediums and we take this evidential knowledge? So it was for me an interesting exercise to see how a society might function under a spiritual, more vacant or more aware or more guided what good or evil is within the society. So basically I had too much time.
Oh no, I think I know where you're going with this. So there's a couple of fun stories that come to mind. I think it was Edward Case, who was the medium. He gave his son, I'm paraphrasing the story, it's been a while since I read it, but he gave his son a code word. And he said, you should pursue mediums, you should go find psychics in the world, but you'll know that they're in touch with me if they say this code word. And then he passes on, goes into the afterlife, and allegedly his son finds a medium years and years later who actually says it. But it's something that's exceedingly rare. And then the other thing is I always get worried about this kind of stuff, because if we do accept that like 10% of the population is psychic, like a Fort Salem thing, like there's good outcomes for that because there's comfort for the living about those who've passed on, and there's messages from the gods who are definitely interested in our affairs, and then there's the military industrial complex. And it's ups and downs here. The CIA even took that in Project Stargate, I want to say it was, and they had them scrying remote military bases and the moon and all the rest of it. And it's wildly interesting reading, because a couple of those people are interesting and genuine and got some home runs, and some of them are like, that's where the lizard people live, and it's like, all right, what am I reading? I don't know.
Okay, we came off track. Thank you for reminding me. But the reason why I said all of it is because I think the beauty it is exactly as you guys saying it and keep repeating it, going to nature, having the feet in the dirt, feeling it. And this is the real treasure. I more and more come to listen. The more conversations I have, the more I can feel the honesty in the words of these very emotional experience that you seem to be having with those entities. And it's very loving, it's very intimate and hands-on. And this seems to me becoming a more and more guiding light how to look at all of this. We have a couple of last minutes left, if that's or you with you guys. And because I have these wonderful questions that you gave me, I want to go back to script and ask, have you recently visited a haunted house?
Oh my goodness.
I have gone to a couple for fun, just for fun with some friends that do the ghost hunting, and they have their little, what is it, the EVP things. And
That's why she's
and that was another place where you go in there and you're like, it's just for fun. We're not going to find anything. I don't know if I believe in this. And then like things start jumping out at you and you're like, oh, okay, I'm listening. Yeah, it depends. Not every haunted house is haunted. And I always tell people, I said, you don't need to be afraid of it. Just treat them with respect, because if it is a haunting, it's people. It's just people. And when you go, you want to be treated with respect. Do the same thing for whatever presence is there.
Would you make a ceremony to let them release? Would you pray for them or give them some way to find their path?
Each case is different. If you wanted to do something like that, I would say ask them first. You know, you can quietly do a meditation and just see what comes to you. And if it's you're asking questions and the answer comes to you that they want to, sure. And if they say, no, we're quite fine, thank you very much, then leave it be, you know?
To ask this technical question, the end was probably inappropriately short, but is energetic work, like guarding work, protecting work, is this like a major element of the things that you do? Working with these entities, you need to also take care of your own protection. And is this like one of them, the big things at the beginning of Gardnerian work?
I thought we can talk about stuff. But I would say there's different things for different reasons that you can do different things, but I can't go too much into what we do as Gardnerians in that aspect. But I can say as a private practitioner, you can do all kinds of things. You can do a healing stuff for people, anything. There's plenty of books which give you magical correspondences for herbs and gemstones and all kinds of things. And you can just learn and do things to help others.
I think that it's important to understand that everything is connected. Everything's connected. Some things much more distantly than others. But when you're doing those sorts of protection works, what you're really saying is this is how I'm mediating my relationship with those forces. And so I think it is very important to declare that you are going to take ownership of that and then do something about it. Some people will say, oh, those rituals are so that you start with a clean slate or whatever. Or I don't think it's like that. I think it's You are declaring what your relationship is with those forces, and you're mediating them, and you're bringing them under control, and you're establishing your relationship in the social contract for your interactions.
Like boundaries.
You're not going to want to hang out with somebody who curses at you and is angry all the time. And maybe you do want to hang out with people who are interested in you, love you all the time. But maybe there's a third where you're just not interested in seeing people. What's that?
Sorry, I must answer this. You said you're bringing them under your control. But that's an interesting one for me. That's been a whole long hot topic on this podcast. Is this a sentence that just came out by accident, or is this a sentence that you stand by? You are bringing them under your control. Is this a real sentence or just something that came out by accident?
That's a general statement.
Oh, I think I would go one further with that. I think that most things occur because of the social contract, but when you talk about unruly spirits or you talk about negative influences or something like that, you don't necessarily, hey, I'm commanding you to jump off a bridge, but maybe you close the laptop or shut the application or hang up the phone. And those are actions that you assert your control over. Those are things that you can control. And I don't think anybody in even Gardnerian Wicca will tell you that they can make somebody jump off of a bridge. I don't think that's something that you can do. I think that people have a will to live that's greater than your will for them to jump off the bridge. Think about politicians and how they're still alive. But there are things that you can do. You can turn off the TV if you don't want to hear a politician. You can stop reading Facebook if you don't want to hear a politician. Those are things that you can exercise control over, and you should as part of healthy boundary setting.
I would say a lot of times that kind of stuff is for high magic, where it's controlling your space and controlling what's entered in. That's more of a high magic thing than a Gardnerian thing.
But we still do it. But we won't tell you how. It's a mystery. But we still do it.
This is interesting because there's a lot of people who are clearly say, with the last question, so to say, or last wrapping up, there's a lot of people who clearly say with 100% that these spirits, high or whatever spirits, that humans basically are absolutely just in for the ride. The spirit chooses you, you cannot choose the spirit, and you can never command them. You can just basically humbly ask, would you please do this and this or help me here and here? But the spirits are in charge and control. So that would be 90% of the people I talk to. Very, as you said, high magic and others, they really say no. With the rituals or the words I choose, and I can command them. But that's basically from the people I've met so far, I'd say less than 10% of the people I had on this show. And for me, this is an interesting element, how one would imagine that a human can be so strong that it can take those entities and make them do things that they maybe don't want or reluctant or whatever. So this is a very interesting thing, and that's why I jumped so much on this sentence.
Yeah, high magic is very controlling. Having done high magic, it's very much about you command the spirit. So depending on what you're doing, depending on what type of circle you're doing, high magic is very, but that's not Gardnerian.
Yeah, within the context of Gardnerian, we touched on this in the last podcast. You have to be merciful and gracious, and you have to work for what you believe is, the good of things. If I jump on the phone with you and I'm like, Philip, you will do something. You will clean your room. If you're my mother, I might listen to you, but probably I'm going to be like, no, dude, you gotta chill out. The same thing goes with spirits. You can command them, but it's poor form to do.
Yeah, they might not necessarily respect you enough to help you.
And I mean, it comes down to what are my outcomes? If you call me up on the phone and you're like, give me $100.
But you're sorry, but you really see the fundamental problem here, right? Or just me? Is it just me because I don't understand it enough? But for me, it's a fundamental problem. I'm finally happy with the concept that they are basically above us and they need to lower the frequencies. We put our frequencies up, we can connect, and we can build this bond. I'm finally happy with this, right?
Yeah.
But now going further, how we as humans who just have a millimeter of them or just a little of the soul inside can develop such powers that we can reach into the other world and command, this is definitely a whole new biscuit.
Yeah, like basically, the way I try to treat things is these beings, this consciousness, they've been around for millennia. Who knows how old they are? Much older. And, you don't just barge in and say, hey, you're going to listen to me. They're like, who are you? You're an ant. You're nothing. So you go in there with that respect and you're like, okay, I understand you are so much wiser and older than me. Can you please help? And they will be much more amicable. You don't treat things with vinegar, you treat things with honey. You have to be respectful. The high magic sometimes deals with things that are not good spirits. And then I would say that is why sometimes it is more commanding. Whereas in low magic, it's more about respect and reverence and being kind and saying you're humbled before them and you're asking for help,
I think it's also a question of agency, because you as a person, not necessarily as a magician or witch or Gardnerian or whatever, you have agency. And they also have agency. And you have to respect that. You have to respect that agency,
Yeah.
right? And yes, you can command to a certain point, but again, it's just poor form. I mean, like what she said, you'll catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, right?
Yeah. Especially if you've
I have
never
a lot
worked.
more podcasting to do.
I don't know. Some people might be into being commanded. I don't know.
We've researched into a lot of different magical systems, and that was part of our journey. Solomonic magic. We've done high magic. We've done everything just to understand what it was, how it works, how it all fits in. Once you do, it starts to make more sense. It's one of those things like in your learning where if you learn a little bit from everything, you get that more well-rounded education. So then it all starts to make more sense. Why you do this over here and why you do that over there. Why you can do certain things in this system, but not with this one. It makes more sense, because you understand what you're working with, what you're dealing with is different in each magical system.
Sam, crazy disappointed in myself because I'm completely not a materialist at all as a person. I couldn't care less for money because I'm brought up well. But every time people talk about magic, I'm without this is part of my personality. I always ask, can you make money with it? Can you, get the riches and make the spirits, tell me the numbers of the lotto? And I don't know why it is so connected in my brain. I clearly have to work on myself. And so with this, I want to say thank you and then giving the floor to you guys. But thank you so very much for really showing me a world that I can feel through the way you pronounce it, the way you explain it, the nature, the feet into the earth, the hunting of a deer and things like that is a strong picture, strong visual of human, humble. And I think that I understand better now what seeker I should be to contact you. And clearly as a personal statement without knowing anything, everybody who's listening still after 1 hour and 1 minute, definitely before you want to play with magic, better to find people like you or others who actually know their stuff before you secretly in the room try to cast some spells. I guess that's also a very important message. So to say, don't do this at home.
But it's always good to have a little bit of fun too,
Get your feet wet. Just don't burn down your house.
You have to have a sense of humor.
Get your feet wet with sense of humor, and once you're haunted, then come and cry for help. Thank you.
Maybe do it at a friend's house, or maybe rent a place. I don't know. Good things.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Josh and LadyE, was it? All right. Thank you so very much for answering your questions back to me. And the bad ones for the audience, the ones who definitely didn't land, they came from me directly. Thank you so very much, and I wish you a happy new year coming forward.
Good New Year.
Blessed be.